Believe it or not, Negroes are still upset at Fat Joe because he dared to call them racist and broke, specifically the FBA black folks, which is just another version of pro blackity blacks, which we all know is just up under the Democrat Party. And apparently, in reaction to that, he's been let go from hosting the BET Awards. And the FBAs, as they like to say, celebrated that. But when you realize who actually owns BET, a woman by the name of Sherry Redstone, a white liberal Jewish woman, it just sets yet another example of how FBAs are no different than pro blacks, who are just no different than your typical Democrat, which are usually led by, you know, liberal white Jews. And the other aspect of this video will focus on Negroes being upset with another rapper. This one, who I think they would consider FBA, Slim Doug. Slim Thug recently made a post where he dared suggest to so-called Negroes to stop blaming white folks. He stated, quote, "It's 2025. We can't blame white folks no more. That wasn't even these people. That was some people before them." And as we know, blaming white folks is most so-called black people's favorite pastime. And so, as a result, they got upset with him, even though he's a proud Kamala voter. But as you know, if you're not 100% in lockstep with the monolith, because so-called black people generally are monolithic in their thinking, uh, they will condemn you, as they done with Fat Joe. Uh, so let me first talk more about this Fat Joe situation. Again, I just find it comical because we know, as I just highlighted with Slim Thug, Negroes getting mad at somebody calling them racist is the biggest joke in the world, because that's one of the main things that black folks do on social media 24/7, is talking about how racist everybody else is. And imagine that there could never be a reason why anyone would hate us, and thus anybody that has a critical comment or viewpoint, they're all racist. And even if they're pandering to these Negroes, they'll still find a way to call them racist. And again, they're not just calling so-called white people racist all the time. I've highlighted about how Negro travelers go to every single country to investigate ways that they can call people that, again, they're visiting their country, but they're investigating ways how they could call them racist. And then, the whole broke comment, I mean, we know that regularly gets used, especially, black on black, sort of back and forth that happen online. And Negroes love to signal wealth, riches, or the lack thereof as a talking point to insult uh, other people, but particularly other so-called black people. And so this is a thing that's commonly said by Negroes towards other people and towards other so-called black people, but Fat Joe says it is an issue. And then they're trying to comically make it seem like a rapper being a racist is somehow the worst thing a rapper can be. Because remember, we're talking about rap and rappers, where literally hundreds of them can end up being shot and or killed due to existing in the rap world. And if it's not the rappers, it's rap fans, friends, family members, associates, because that's what rap has become, especially since the introduction of gangster rap in the late 1980s. And that's why this whole battle over who created it. I mean, quite frankly, no one in their right mind should want to claim the creation of what the utter travesty that so-called rap has been for decades now. It's again synonymous with crime, thugs, ghetto, hood rats, uh, the worst of the worst. And it's quite frankly, especially with the Diddy situation, becoming more and more abundantly clear how homosexual rap is. Which again isn't a surprise when you know that they embrace prison culture, and we know what prison culture includes. A lot of man on man activity, consensual and forced. So, who should really want to claim the creation of a death call, which is not help society, to say the least? In the beginning, it had a handful of years, but quite frankly, you know, rap died well over 3 decades ago. Again, particularly with the introduction of gangster rap. And then also they're acting as if these Hispanics, these Latinos, haven't been using the N word, not just in song, but in their regular day to day life, especially when they're Latino or Hispanic street dudes. And guess what? They're never going to stop because they don't have that white guilt, which is again why it's always funny to me when these liberal Negroes, these FBAs, why they've always pushed this whole POC nonsense, trying to get everybody under this umbrella, to dominate and rule against against the white man, when in reality, in that kind of world, there would be zero white guilt in existence. So again, you're talking about Latinos, uh, Arabs, Asians having no hesitation in addressing Negroes in a way where there's no guilt involved. I mean, the reality is these so-called FBAs are the safest under so-called white rule because that's the only demographic where that whole guilt bullshit comes from. Which is why BET responded by allowing Fat Joe to say that he stepped down when I'm sure they just let him go. And again, it's not FBA BT like when Rob Johnson owned it. It is JEW BET. Because its parent company is Paramount Global, and Paramount Global is under National Amusements, which is headed by a liberal Jewish woman who got the reins from her father, Sumner Redstone. Dare I say, they're owned by a wealthy family. Uh, and again, with the Slim Thug thing, I mean, we all know Negroes shouldn't be doing that. It's not helping anybody but, the people that hustle off of that industry of perpetual victimhood. But again, this was just temporary sanity on Slim Thug's part because ultimately, as we know, especially based on who he publicly announced he voted for, he's still your typical pro blackity black who only had a momentary lapse, I should say, of sanity. But anyway, that's all I have to say about this.